I just need some space. I'm not ready for a relationship. It's not you, it's me. How many times do you have to hear these lines? How many times will you ask yourself, why is it always me? Today, I'm going to tell you the truth that nobody else has told you. And trust me, this is going to be uncomfortable.
There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who can't truly see you. You're sitting across from someone you care about, sharing your deepest thoughts, only to watch your words disappear into the space between you like smoke. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's 32, warm, thoughtful, deeply capable of love. And yet, for the past decade, Sarah has found herself in relationships with people who couldn't quite love her back. There was Michael, who needed space whenever things got too real. Then James, who was still figuring himself out after 3 years. And most recently, Alex, who became mysteriously busy the moment Sarah mentioned a future. Sarah would lie awake, wondering what was wrong with her. Here's what Sarah didn't realize. The question isn't really why you attract emotionally unavailable people. The deeper question is why you're attracted to them. Why something in you recognizes something in them and says, yes, this feels familiar, even when your conscious mind is screaming that it's anything but. We have to go back to the beginning. Long before you had language for concepts like emotional availability, you were learning what love looked like by watching and experiencing the love around you. If affection was conditional, something you had to earn through performance or achievement, you internalized a specific belief. Love is something you have to work for, and it's probably something you'll never quite deserve. Or perhaps you grew up in a home where a parent was physically present but emotionally distant. As a child, you couldn't understand that their unavailability had nothing to do with your worth. So you concluded that if your parent couldn't fully love you, you weren't lovable enough. And here's the devastating part. You also learned that this kind of partial love, these crumbs of affection, were normal. It became your template.
Now, fast forward to adulthood. When you meet someone emotionally unavailable, something strange happens. Your rational mind might recognize the red flags, but underneath, in the unconscious caverns of your psyche, there's a recognition. This feels familiar. This feels like love as you learned it. This is called repetition compulsion, one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. We're drawn to recreate the unresolved dynamics of our past, not because we're gluttons for punishment, but because some part of us believes that if we can just succeed this time, we can heal the original wound. You don't consciously think, this person reminds me of my emotionally distant parent. Instead, you just feel drawn to them. They seem interesting, mysterious, deep. If you experienced inconsistent love in childhood, you might have developed what psychologists call an anxious attachment style. When someone is consistently available, it can actually feel uncomfortable, even boring. Your nervous system, trained to associate love with anxiety and uncertainty, doesn't recognize stable affection as love at all.
This is the cruel irony. The very thing you consciously want, reliable, emotionally available love can feel wrong to your unconscious mind because it doesn't match your early programming. Meanwhile, the breadcrumbs from an emotionally unavailable person trigger an intense response. Each small moment of connection feels like winning the lottery because it's unpredictable and rare. Your brain releases dopamine in response to these intermittent rewards, the same neurochemical pattern that makes gambling addictive. You're not weak or foolish. Your brain has been wired to find that dynamic compelling.
Self-worth sits at the center of all of this. If you don't believe deep in your bones that you're worthy of full, reciprocal love, you'll unconsciously select people who confirm that belief. If someone came along who wanted to love you completely, with no walls and no conditions, and you didn't believe you deserved that, it would create cognitive dissonance. Your mind would reject it, find ways to sabotage it. Emotionally unavailable people feel safe. They keep you at a distance, which means they never get close enough to see the parts of you that you're ashamed of. Their unavailability protects you from the vulnerability of being truly known. There's also something seductive about the project of it all. They've been hurt before. They have walls up for a reason. You tell yourself that your love is powerful enough to heal them, that your patience will finally allow them to open up. But here's the painful truth. You cannot love someone into emotional availability. Their unavailability isn't a challenge for you to overcome. It's a statement about where they are in their own journey. When Sarah finally examined her patterns, she realized something startling. Every relationship that had devastated her had also allowed her to avoid confronting her own fear of intimacy. As long as she was with someone unavailable, she never had to risk true closeness. She could be the one wanting more, all while keeping herself safe from the vulnerability that real reciprocal intimacy requires. This is the shadow side we rarely talk about. Yes, you might be genuinely ready for connection, but there might also be a part of you that's terrified of it. Think about what would happen if you entered a relationship where someone met you fully. You would have to show up as yourself completely. You would be responsible for maintaining your own sense of self. You would have to tolerate being fully seen, flaws at all. For many of us, that's absolutely terrifying. There's another pattern worth examining: the role of fantasy. When someone is emotionally unavailable, there's always a gap between who they are and who they could be. That gap becomes a space where you project all your hopes and desires. You fall in love not with the person in front of you, but with the potential person, the one you glimpse in rare moments of vulnerability. And sometimes these people do show up just enough to keep you hooked. They have a moment of openness, share something vulnerable. Your heart leaps. See, I knew they had it in them. But then they retreat again. This intermittent reinforcement is psychologically one of the most powerful ways to keep someone engaged. Winning sometimes, unpredictably, keeps you pulling that lever. So, what shifts when you start to recognize these patterns? The first thing is grief. You grieve the relationships you've invested in that were never going to give you what you needed. You grieve the younger version of yourself who learned that love meant scarcity and conditions. This grief is necessary. Sit with it. Honor it. But the real transformation begins when you start to develop what you were missing all along: a secure relationship with yourself. This means learning to give yourself the consistency, the presence, the unconditional regard that you've been seeking from others. It means showing up for yourself every day, keeping promises to yourself, treating yourself with the kindness you've been reserving for people who don't reciprocate it. Here's what starts to happen when you do this work.
Emotionally unavailable people begin to feel different to you, not because they've changed, but because you have. That familiar pull starts to fade. You might meet someone and notice the signs, the vagueness, the inconsistency, and instead of feeling intrigued or challenged, you just feel tired. You recognize it for what it is, a repetition of an old pattern that no longer serves you, and you make a different choice.